It makes me feel quite unwell that the Switch is nearing a decade old, almost as unwell as standing up without a week's notice. But what a revolution the Switch has been for Nintendo and gaming as a whole. While the successor is now out in the wild, Nintendo will still be supporting the original Switch for a long time yet, and that is because of absolute whippers like these. Say what you want about Nintendo, as long as you've got your lawyer present, but they love to take big swings sometimes, and ARMS is literally a wild haymaker at using motion controls to create a fighting game. Is it perfect? No, and your actual ARMS will probably be more tired playing this game for half an hour than they were when you first discovered Google Images as a teenager. But it is fun. Essentially a boxing game, except everyone has slinkies for upper body limbs, ARMS is a bit more of a party game than it is a truly technical brawler. Players can pick different gloves with their own power-ups, but a lot of matches boil down to throwing as many punches as possible until the other person eats the canvas. Special mention for the other modes like volleyball and basketball modes though, as they're pretty fun at parties. Me, I can't wait to get hands-on with ARMS too. Most games that cite lofty influences like Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger tend to fall flat when it comes to the actual execution. Chained Echoes doesn't have to worry in that regard, as while the story isn't quite the ambitious time-hopping adventure that Chrono Trigger was, it's still an incredible homage to JRPGs of yesteryear. If you're looking for a slice of classic role-playing game action you find on the SNES or PS1, this is for you. Set on the continent of Volandis, Chained Echoes follows the typical unlikely crew of allies banded together for a common goal. You have to get through a few steps before the stereotypical god killing, but still. If you love a little bit of war, a little bit of politics, but not in a boring way, and some very lovely modern retro visuals, this is the game for you on Switch. Bayonetta has been the byword for character action games on the Switch since Platinum ported the first two games over early on in the console's lifespan. Is the long-awaited third entry in the series just as good as Bayonetta 1 and 2? Most would say probably not, based largely on some questionable character choices made in the latter stages of the story, but gameplay-wise this is still every bit the amazing Bayo experience players have fallen in love with over the past decade and a half. While previous games in the series saw the titular Umbran witch fighting against gods, devils, angels and demons, Bayonetta 3 is all about the most dangerous creatures of all. Man. Well, man-made monstrosities known as homunculi, which who are intent on destroying the multiverse. Yes, it is a multiverse story, and that leads down some pretty silly story paths, but just go with it and you'll have a good time. Look, we're not saying that the idea to create Tetris 99 was the most original and innovative one of all time. For a moment, it felt like everyone, and I mean everyone in the gaming industry, was trying to capitalise on the Battle Royale trend, finding ways to pit lobbies of up to 100 players against each other in elimination-style gameplay. Tetris 99 was just the most surprising one to do it, and do it with a level of earnestness that caught many off guard. Like a Puyo Pop or Tetris 1v1 but extended across 99 players, everyone is just trying to play a normal game of Tetris, clearing lines and the like. However, the lines you clear and points you score are used to attack other players, gumming up their board with useless pieces. Play continues until 98 players are stinky losers and one player is the grand champion. It's fast, addictive, and also led to other limited time multiplayer games based on Nintendo properties, so it deserves to be celebrated within the Switch's history. You want a game that'll either make you feel like you've got the biggest brain in existence, or that you're a dumbass who barely even knows how to tie your own shoelaces. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is the game for you, with its approach to non-linear puzzle solving and third-person exploration making it perfect for anyone who loves to take notes while playing their favourite video games. A game that's layered in about as much mystery as the disappearance of D.B. Cooper, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes sees a woman invited to a strange mansion by an eccentric and enigmatic old coot. The premise is simple, as you're just trying to solve various puzzles, but the illusions and mystery only become more intense, dangerous, and weird as the game progresses, making for an unforgettable experience. If that sounds like too much though, try Sayonara Wild Hearts instead. Same developers, good vibes, perfect Switch game. From one puzzle game to another, albeit one less vague and more stupid, complimentary, that's intended, What the Golf is a funny take on the idea of golf, where levels are short, the concepts are varied, and the entertainment is everlasting. Well, for about 10 hours. Calling this a golf game is probably a disservice to the long-standing sport of golf, considering 90% of the time it feels like you're not even controlling a ball or aiming for a hole, but it's wonderful nonetheless. Created by a team who relishes the fact that they hate golf, What The Golf offers players hundreds of levels where the objective is getting the item to its destination. Sometimes it's a golf ball, sometimes it's an office chair, occasionally it's a toaster. You never really know what to expect when it comes to What The Golf, other than the unexpected of course. For that unpredictability alone, it's a bloody brilliant Switch game. It is a crying shame that Snipperclips came out when it did, early on in the Switch's life. While many people were busy with Breath of the Wild, a charming little co-op game didn't quite receive the recognition it deserved for promoting creativity and just generally being a lovely time, and a game that uses most of the Switch's pretty forgotten gimmicks to brilliant effect. Snipperclips is a platformer that sees you teaming up to cut shapes to help your avatar, which you can also cut up, make their way through levels with there being more than one route to complete a puzzle. It'll have you laughing and maybe even pulling out your hair if your teamwork isn't on point, but you'll definitely have fun no matter what. You can even use the Joy-Con IR sensor with it, which you probably totally forgot existed. Or you didn't forget because you watched beat-em-ups with his long flowing mane. Bastard. There's this notion that horror is specifically an adult-only pursuit, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Look at how properties like Goosebumps helped introduce kids to the horror genre without actually terrifying them too much. Well, apart from me, The Haunted Mask is my nightmare still. Beacon Pines feels like a video game version of that ideal, complete with the fact that the game plays out like the retelling of a storybook. You want some friendly horror that still contains plenty of twists and turns? Well, this is the game for you. Set in the eponymous town, players take on the role of 12-year-old dear boy Luca, who lives with his grandmother after his father died and mother disappeared, both separately under mysterious circumstances. After encountering some strange events within the town's forest, Luca resolves with his best friend Rolo and newcomer Beck to find out the conspiracy that lies at the heart of Beacon Pines. And you should find out for yourself why this is still such an underrated little gem. Nintendo are famously clingy when it comes to their most famous properties, so it was a bit of a surprise to see them lease Mario to Ubisoft, even more so when it was announced as a crossover with basically gaming's Minions. That's still a sentence that doesn't make any sense, and also doesn't make sense just how good Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle somehow turned out to be. Effectively, right, XCOM for a younger audience, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle gives Mario a gun and some very insistent sidekicks as they take part in turn-based combat where the odds may never be in your favour. Sure, it's not revolutionary as such, but it proves just how malleable Mario is, and also somehow completed the impossible mission of making Rabbids seem less awful in general. Now that's pretty impressive. Nintendo and Ubisoft did create a sequel called Sparks of Hope, which is also excellent and still a bit weird to think about, but for our money, the first outing was the best one. It takes a lot of popularity to create a whole new trend in gaming, and Vampire Survivors feels like it managed to accomplish that goal. The auto-battling bullet hell roguelike Vampire Survivors managed to inspire a bunch of other indie game developers to create their own spins on the one versus everything on the screen roguelike formula. If it has Survivor in the subtitle, chances are they're trying to emulate Vampire Survivors. A loving homage to the Castlevania franchise while pioneering a new kind of roguelike, players pick a character and are swarmed by monsters for 30 minutes. You earn XP and level up to unlock new weapons and items to make you stronger, and you see how long you can last. You start off weak, but sink some real time into this game and you'll begin to see why the tagline for it is "Become the Bullet Hell." It is a real banger as long as you get past the quite basic visuals. And also I don't think you should play it if you don't like things flashing at you every minute. Who doesn't love traditional 2D Mario? Joyless zombies, we imagine, so Super Mario Maker 2 should be an easy sell for pretty much everyone who is alive. If you like 2D Mario, here's a potentially infinite amount of it. Truly, Nintendo should be commended for giving players the tools to create their own Mario levels, and while SMM2 lacks some of the Easter eggs from the first game, new tile sets and the introduction of Super Mario 3D World mechanics help round out the experience. For those with an abundance of imagination and creativity, you can be lost for hours simply creating new levels for people to enjoy, while the casual player has both a decent single player campaign and the millions of levels others have created. New tools like the ability to create groups of levels with a map a la Super Mario World help make Super Mario Maker 2 an essential Nintendo Switch purchaser. I'm so sorry, please subscribe. The most recent addition to this list, Shinobi Art of Vengeance, feels like a bold new direction for a series that had been left behind by Sega for a few generations at this point. Helmed by Lizard Cube, one of the dev teams by the utterly incredible Streets of Rage 4, beautiful game, Shinobi Art of Vengeance once again follows the head of the Oboro clan, Joe Musashi, as he heads out to thwart the attempts of world domination by the enigmatic Lord Roos. Is he a lord or is he just a duke? Played out over a dozen stages, Joe carves a bloody path through the ENEE Corp forces trying to stop him, learning new moves, spells and abilities in the process to make you more deadly. With some light, very light Metroidvania elements, as players can return to complete stages to find new goodies once they've unlocked, later power-ups and stuff, Shinobi Art of Vengeance is perfect for fans of both old and new platformers, and it looks sensational. Why bother waiting for Nintendo to make a new Wario Land game when they're clearly too busy making the motorbike riding flatulence enthusiast pedal mini-games? Obviously, the development team known as Torta Pizza had the same thought, as they banded together under pseudonyms to create Pizza Tower, a loving tribute to a long-lost series of Nintendo platformers. A game aimed at those who make pizza their entire personality, players control Peppino Spaghetti, the most obviously Italian chef you could think of. Go on then, try and think of a more Italian name than that. I'm going to go for Salvatore Mozzarella. If you think you can beat that, drop it down below in the comments and the funniest response will win a Steam key. Saddled with a struggling pizzeria, Peppino is then threatened by Pizzaface, who is, you guessed it, a floating sentient pizza. Vowing his revenge, Peppino decides to scale Pizzaface's tower, causing high-speed havoc and destruction across 20 levels and 5 boss fights. The art style might not be for everyone, but this is fun from start to finish. Dave the Diver deserves all the love in the world based purely on the fact that the lead character is a chubby 30 to 40 something. In awe at the size of this lad, absolute unit, and so on. The fact that he manages to fit all of that gloriousness inside of a scuba suit without it exploding off him is arguably the most unrealistic part of Dave the Diver, and that includes all the fictional underwater monsters you have to fight. I mean, Godzilla is there. The game, which is a banger by the way of course, follows Dave as he teams with friends Cobra and the skilled sushi chef Bancho in opening a sushi restaurant next to a blue hole, which is a deep cavern filled with marine life. By day, Dave does the diving, catching various fish and contending with occasional bosses, along with dwindling oxygen supplies, while by night, Dave has to help man the restaurant, taking orders and cleaning up. It's a simple cycle, but one that'll hook you like you're the fish being caught. It's a great game, and it's one that feels really great portable too. You want stories about cute animals that also touch on the effects of mental health and generational expectations? Bit of a specific niche, we're not going to lie. But Chicory, A Colourful Tale is all about that, and also all about being very bloody lovely. The game actually sees you playing as an anthropomorphic dog named after the player's favourite food. The default option is pizza, but we're all adults here, so naturally we're going to write something like knob, then chuckle every time a text box appears. The old ones are the best ones. Your character is actually the janitor to Chicory, who wields a magic brush that can bring colour to the world. One day you find the brush discarded while all the colour has been drained from the world, so you decide to do something about it. Along the way you'll learn more about Chicory, the brush itself, and the connection to this mysterious disappearance of colour. It's cute, charming and fun for all ages, and basically a perfect Switch game. Unless you happen to have played Inscription, we can guarantee that you've never played a game like Inscription. Sure, the on-the-box description of the game might say that it's a roguelike deck builder, which would make you think of games like Monster Train or Slay the Spire, but that's where the comparison between Inscription and pretty much every other roguelike deck builder ends. The fundamentals of Inscription focus on a grid-based card game where players draw cards to try and attack and defend against the opponent's cards. Between battles, you're locked in a cabin trying to solve puzzles to unlock new cards to help you fight, but once you finally beat your opponent, Inscription really begins to open up. I can't say any more, just that you owe it to yourself to at least try this banger. Also check out Pony Island afterwards, it's from the same guy and it's also pretty good. Ooh-wee, make sure you have the tissues ready when you play Spiritfarer, considering this is one of the most emotional and heart-wrenching journeys players can take in a video game. Playing as Stella, you awaken in a mysterious world and are given the role of shepherding deceased souls to the afterlife, taking care of their whims and needs on a massive ship in the process. At its gooey core, Spiritfarer is a management sim, as you need to make sure conditions are correct for each of your inhabitants, forging bonds and giving them their preferred food. Juggling plates for up to 5 different souls at one time can be a bit tricky, especially before you start upgrading your ship, but the hardship is worth it when the writing is this good. Saying those final goodbyes has to rank among the most emotional scenes in all of gaming, making this an easy recommendation. Oh, it's not easy saying goodbye to the little hedgehog lady though. Oh. Another gem on whichever platform it's on, Downwell simply does not lose its appeal despite originally launching in 2015 and looking like it came out in 1985. Its Switch port is one of the only games which makes effective use of tape mode, which orientates the handheld into portrait mode. Downwell is also a game pretty much anyone could pick up and play thanks to it needing barely any inputs, though mastering it is another task entirely. Rock hard and punishing, Downwell casts you down a well with only gumboots for company. Procedurally generated levels ensure no two runs are ever the same, so you can never be too comfortable with it. It's not so much a game that you will beat in quick time, rather one that will make every inch of progress feel like a mile. It's never unfair, it's just asking you to grow and learn the more you play. Don't write it off just because it looks like a game you'd get in one of those weird mini arcade cap collections from Asda. It is truly a fantastic game. Of course, a game that was inspired by the old Legend of Zelda games would end up becoming one of the best games you can play on the Nintendo Switch as well. Set in a ruined world, you control a lone adventurer, who in this tale happens to be a cute little fox and not a twink elf boy. Instead of parts of the Triforce or heart pieces, players are hunting down crystal keys and manual pages to uncover more about the world of Tunic and its language. The actual gameplay offers a little bit of Souls-like-esque exploration and progression, but from a isometric perspective, with various shrines acting as checkpoints, restoring your health while reviving all the enemies in the area. Come for the cute characters, stay for the actually deep and engaging puzzles, and combat that'll have you both scratching your head and coming back for more. Nintendo are often very shy about letting others play with their toys, which is why their decision to let Crypt of the Necrodancer developers Brace Yourself games loose with the Zelda IP in 2019 came as quite the shock. Following on from their previously mentioned roguelike, Cadence of Hyrule offered the same rhythm action dungeon crawling gameplay of Necrodancer, albeit with a Zelda skin over the top of it. The roguelike elements were massively scaled back, which makes sense considering a Zelda game would be targeting more of a casual audience. Players explore an overworld, encounter dungeons, and fight enemies and bosses, like they would in regular Zelda, except now combat is done to the beat of the music, and when the soundtrack is as good as Zelda's, you've got a recipe for greatness. It's fair to say that the Shin Megami Tensei series has been somewhat overshadowed compared to its spin-off series, Persona. Fortunately for us, Atlus refused to give up on SMT, with the most recent game, Shin Megami Tensei 5, ranking among the best RPGs on the Switch. Anyone who's played an Atlus RPG in the past will be familiar with the press-turn gameplay and various monsters, but the setting of SMT is completely unique. Split between the post-apocalyptic Earth known as Dart and modern-day Tokyo, Shin Megami Tensei 5 sees players emerging with a godlike entity to become the Nahobino. Players are free to make choices and alliances with certain factions that'll dictate the fate of Dart, making for a pretty unique RPG experience. Special mention should also be made that you want to specifically check out Vengeance, the upgraded version that added new gameplay material and a brand new story campaign, as well as a banger soundtrack you might be hearing right now. Undoubtedly Platinum's most underrated game on the Nintendo Switch, it felt like Astral Chain really had the potential to become a new Nintendo exclusive franchise. Hell, the staff even admitted that the game outperformed sales expectations, but for whatever reason we're still waiting for a sequel. Maybe we'll get one now that the Switch 2 has been out for a while, but for now we're just happy to keep playing the original classic. Set in a futuristic world, Astral Chain sees humanity plagued with attacks by monsters from another dimension. Fighting them is nearly impossible unless you're one of the select few who've been given control of a legion. That's a tame demon that fights alongside you. Playing as one member of a brother/sister duo, you'll defend humanity from monsters while investigating a conspiracy at the centre of it all. It is very much a PS2-arse game, and that is the biggest compliment you can give anything. The Switch is practically swimming in 2D platformers, so obviously there's more than one of them in the top 50 when it comes to the best Switch games. Ori is a special brand though, championing the Metroidvania exploration experience while adding plenty of new tricks in regards to combat, platforming and storytelling to make it one of the best platforming games on any console. The issue we're having though is that both Ori games, that's The Blind Forest and The Will of the Wisps, are both incredible, emotional and worth your time. Picking between either of them feels next to impossible, so we're going to make you do it. Fans themselves are split on which one they prefer, so you might be struggling yourself. Really, you should play both of them, as they're both bloody incredible. And both will make you cry big, fat, chunky tears. Manly, masculine tears. Turns out those old RPGs like Chrono Trigger were a huge inspiration to an entire generation of indie developers, as you can tell by Chained Echoes earlier, because here's another one that successfully captured that nostalgic feeling. Despite that, Sea of Stars is more than just a cheap pop of the member berries for RPG fans, as this innovative and joyous experience brings more than enough of its own ideas to the forefront. Another isometric RPG, please bear with me, Sea of Stars follows Valere and Zale, two people who wield magic related to the sun and the moon respectively, it's like Pokemon, and who are on a quest to rid the world of an immortal alchemist flooding the world with monsters. Standard RPG stuff, though prepare for some twists along the way. However, it's the turn-based gameplay that's changed, with players able to see when enemies will attack via the lock system and can even disrupt attacks with the right elements. It's challenging yet engaging and has a pretty brilliant cast of characters that's easy to click with. Play it and ocean for yourself. See for yourself. Vanillaware might have got their big break with 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, a fantastic RTS game with a haunting narrative you should also check out on the Switch. That being said, today we want to highlight their more recent release, Unicorn Overlord, as it's yet another example of stellar RTS gameplay that really slipped under the radar for a lot of people when it launched in 2024. A tactical RPG with RTS-style battles, Unicorn Overlord follows a young heir who's forced out of his kingdom after the events of a bloody coup. Shame it wasn't a bloodless coup. All smothering. Years later, he returns from his exile to unite the various countries of Fevderith against the authoritarian rule of the Zen-Aurian Empire. It's a well-told story with very likeable characters, and the tactical gameplay gives the game enough meat to carry it over the 60-hour plus runtime, and also it is an absolute looker. Yeah, look, we've mentioned Celeste quite a bit in these ranking lists, and with good reason. This game is incredible and one of the best examples of a modern 2D platform you could ever wish for. We're not going to apologise for recognising greatness when we see it, but if you've watched one of these lists before, feel free to zone out for a second while we talk about Celeste. Don't skip forward though. We need that precious watch time. My life is controlled by numbers. Playing as a would-be mountain climber called Madeline, your goal is to ascend the titular Celeste Mountain, which just so happens to include ruined cities, a haunted hotel, and the personification of Madeline's doubts and anxieties. Climbing Everest would be a lot harder if everyone had to deal with a flying purple version of themselves telling them they sucked every step of the way. Most people wouldn't leave base camp, so Maddie is pretty inspiring for that alone, and I hope you're inspired to give this one a go. We can't talk about Animal Well without at least giving some kind of mention to Video Game Donkey, as when he announced he'd be creating his own indie game publisher, many wondered if he'd have the sauce to create a library of excellent games. Those fears were swiftly put to the rest once Animal Well launched in 2024, as it received widespread critical acclaim and numerous industry awards. But what actually is Animal Well? Well, it's a 2D Metroidvania that sees players controlling a yellow blob who explores distinct biomes and fights animals both real and ethereal. There's not really an established plot in Animal Well, so to speak, but what it offers is tight gameplay, impeccable spooky-ish vibes, and more secrets than your average Mortal Kombat. This well is so deep, not even Lassie could rescue you from it. For a period back there in 2018, which was some 20 years ago, it felt like everyone and their best friend was playing Into the Breach. You simply couldn't escape people either talking about or playing this indie turn-based strategy game, and it's not hard to see why. Turn-based strategy as a broad concept can often feel like it's a bit too meaty for casual players, but Into the Breach was designed with simplicity and addictive gameplay in mind, making it a smash hit. Set in a world where humanity is making its last stand against a race of creatures known as the Vek, players control 3 mechs that must hold out against relentless attacks. Using a grid-based structure, players can see how the Vek are planning to attack and can position their units to either interrupt or intercept, meaning victory is as much about area control as it is shooting everything in sight. Brutal, challenging, yet utterly satisfying when you win, Into the Breach is a perfect game to try out on your Switch. Speaking of perfect Switch games, do you guys feel like getting hooked on crack? A little bit of crack? Well, we know a guy, his name is Local Thunk, and his stuff will make you forget yourself. It is that good. Okay, so maybe we're exaggerating a little bit, as Belotro might not be addictive enough to be classified as an illegal substance, but it is one of the most utterly ingenious deck building roguelikes ever made. What's a more iconic deck than the standard 52, after all? A poker-based roguelike, players draw cards with the intent of playing hands, with rarer hands like 4 of a kind or straight flush naturally being worth way more. Along the way you'll receive jokers with game-changing effects, while the blinds you need to reach to progress get tougher and tougher. It's all the fun of gambling, but with the only loss being your time if a run doesn't go your way. Give it an hour of your time and suddenly, oops, there goes 50. Despite being one of Nintendo's most recognisable and iconic mascots, Kirby was still waiting for his Super Mario 64 moment after decades. Sure, there was a 3D Kirby game on the N64, but that was actually a 2.5D game with 3D characters on a 2D plane. It was just the same as the previous Kirbys in terms of gameplay, albeit with polygons instead of pixels. A fully 3D mainline Kirby had been a long time coming, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land absolutely delivered. The best-selling game in the entire series, Kirby and the Forgotten Land saw the pink ball travel to a world that looked suspiciously like Earth, trying to rescue Waddle Dees from being kidnapped. Copy abilities are back, as they should be for a Kirby game, along with Mouthful mode, where Kirby basically sucks on a massive object. No, there is no other possible way to phrase that. It's a Kirby game for longtime fans and newcomers alike, and it is just a fantastic example of Nintendo's imaginative game design at its best. Sonic Mania is great. You know it, I know it, Sega knows it, even if they refuse to just give us a second one. After years of Team Sonic trying desperately to just reinvent the wheel when it came to the blue blur, all it took, after all, was a team of fans and indie game developers to go back to the beginning, creating arguably the best Sonic game ever made as a result. Is that a bold claim? Possibly, but it still stands alongside those classic Sonic games at the very least. A love letter to Sonic 1-3 and Knuckles, along with Sonic CD, Mania contains remix versions of plenty of classic stages, including Green Hell, what? That's the first time that's ever been done, Chemical Plant, Flying Battery, Stardust Speedway, and more. However, it's the new levels and gimmicks like Studiopolis or Press Garden that give Sonic Mania an identity as more than just a cheap nostalgia merchant. For Switch owners who love running headfirst into a brick wall over and over until they get it just right, Neon White is one of the most addictive games of all time, let alone on the Switch. A speedrunner's delight, few games manage to scratch the perfectionist itch quite as well as this one. Part FPS puzzler, part visual novel, Neon White focuses on the titular Neon White as he tries to figure out how he ended up in heaven, and what all of his associates are doing there too. Even those who don't often find themselves battling on time trial leaderboards will find something to latch onto in this often hilarious, always compelling marvel that somehow balances all of its genres marvellously well. Neon Yellow for life, bro. I don't think anyone could have anticipated that Hollow Knight would become the global sensation it became when it launched in 2017, but here we are in 2025 with everyone still trapped in the throes of its follow-up, Hollow Knight Silksong. You can decide for yourself if Silksong actually deserves a spot on this list over the original, but for our money, it's the original idea of blending heist, difficulty, combat, and boss fights with Metroidvania exploration that makes the first game undeniable. Set in Hallownest, players control a bug referred to simply as the Night, as they deal with the effects of a supernatural disease that's left the kingdom in ruins. With non-linear exploration and plenty of enemies to fight, secrets to find, or NPCs to have a chinwag with, there's no correct way to approach Hollow Knight, making for an adventure that's inviting and daunting all at once. Do not skip this one unless you really hate Metroidvanias, I guess, but then you might end up loving them, because this game is that good. 3D Mario fans were eating good during the Switch's lifespan, with both Super Mario Odyssey and the remaster of Super Mario 3D World that contained the frankly excellent Bowser's Fury expansion. Still, anyone who prefers their Mario games to be a little flatter had to wait a while for their needs to be met, but the wait was more than worth it, as Super Mario Bros. Wonder offered more of that incredible Nintendo imagination while blending old and new mechanics together. Set in a brand new land known as the Flower Kingdom, Super Mario Bros. Wonder doesn't do, well, wonders for the Mario is a drug fiend theory. First, he's getting off his nut on mushrooms, now he's eating these magical flowers that are giving him trippy hallucinations, and also becomes an elephant? Sure. With support for up to 4-player co-op and plenty of levels that push the boundaries of what you expect from a 2D Mario game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is a Switch must-have. While it will always be associated with a worldwide event that gives me a 10,000 yard stare to remember, Animal Crossing New Horizons still likely would have been an absolute phenomenon upon release without all that stuff. The most accessible game in the series, New Horizons invited tens of millions of players to an island paradise back in 2020, and few wanted to ever leave. Though the post-launch support was a bit disappointing, New Horizons' brand of cozy living is going to be a fond memory for many for years from now. Even picking it up in the years since will provide you with a game that can provide 100 hours of entertainment at a minimum, with many more on top of that if you want to build a monument to old robots at your own pace. If you are sick of games that demand the world of you, take a trip on Dodo Airlines, then try not to scream the first time you encounter Pietro. Who made you? Also why? Are you in pain, Pietro? Would you like to be suffocated with a pillow, Pietro? Nintendo are typically considered to be the rulers of local multiplayer, but over the past few years they've earned plenty of acclaim for their online offerings, with Splatoon in particular becoming one of the fastest selling franchises for the Big N. If you're looking to jump into this ink and paint soaked world, the most recent release, Splatoon 3, is your best shout. In a bizarre post-apocalypse, players must fight each other with paint and decorate the surroundings to come out on top. Don't expect Quake from Splatoon 3, it's meant as a party shooter with social capabilities that is something only Nintendo could make. Well, Square Enix also tried to copy them with Foam Stars, but that didn't work out that well, did it? With a lengthy campaign mode and compelling multiplayer options that are accessible for players of most ages, Splatoon 3 is an important addition to anyone's Switch library. Judging by how many developers and publishers are trying to pivot away from the traditional RPG that had its biggest boom in the 90s, you may think that the demand for them is on the wane. Octopath Traveler 2, which feels like it comes from the SNES era in all the best ways, proves that you don't need to make your RPG an open world with a $1 billion budget to look and play great. You control many different characters in a bulging party. Bulging party? Is that what we put on the script, is it? Okay. With those stories unfolding, the deeper into it you go. You'll no doubt be tossing and turning trying to pick your favourite. While it may not look like modern Final Fantasy, Octopath Traveler is a deep and rewarding adventure that will endear itself to those who prefer classic Final Fantasy games that were seen on earlier Nintendo systems. If you do fall in love with Octopath, and you will if you give it the time, be sure to go back and play its predecessor, though the sequel does fix a lot of that game's issues and hang-ups. You know what they say, fourth time's the charm, right? While Pikmin may never be the absolute system shifter that Nintendo keeps hoping it will be, as it's basically an RTS game when you think about it, Pikmin 4 represents the franchise at its most ambitious and effortlessly charming. With Olimar in need of saving from some bastardly shrubbery, you're tasked with getting together with the rest of the rescue corps and making friends with the curious Pikmin on PNF 404, and then throwing in new friends at all kinds of dangers. Pikmin 4 pulls back on the intense time management crunch of its predecessors, while also adding more Pikmin to the party to create probably the most complete experience in the series to date. Plus, it is hard not to be immediately besotted by a game that tasks you with fetching a Game Boy Advance SP. Hell yeah. While it may look simple on the surface, Undertale is anything but. The combat system offers innovations everywhere, including the ability to avoid combat altogether with compassion, and an irreverent tone with a lot of heart that's easy to be charmed by. There's a reason why Undertale has perhaps the most effusively devoted fanbase of any game. You travel across the underground as the only human and come across an eclectic crop of characters, people love Sans but Mettaton is clearly the best, with a unique battle system that is more of a rhythm experience than a conventional RPG, which plays a lot better than it sounds on paper. It's challenging while also brief, but with the storyline opening up, the more you replay and make different choices, the richer your time with this modern classic becomes. You can also check out Deltarune right after. A self-styled Roguevania with a lot of style, Dead Cells started life as an early access game on Steam before making its way to most platforms and receiving widespread, deserved acclaim. It's brutal, but not so brutal that you can't eventually break through hurdles and shriek like a wild banshee the first time you beat the concierge, only to discover that you will have to beat him many more times to the point where he's like any other enemy. Dead Cells is fantastic at making you feel like you're truly improving as you go. You assume control of a bunch of smoke worms, perhaps, maybe, as they take control of a suit of armour and look for their sweet revenge across the grounds of a dangerous castle. Don't sweat that too much though, it's the combat you're here for. There's a fantastic array of ways to approach any sticky situation, but the random nature of each run means that you can never be too comfortable. And also its DLC has probably the best Castlevania has been in years. What's not to love? Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a massive JRPG that plays like a dream on hardware that shouldn't be able to handle its scope as well as it does. A massive journey that will soak up dozens if not hundreds of hours of your life, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 boasts a gigantic open world to explore and a party of characters that you can't help but grow enamoured by. I don't wish to overwhelm you when I say that you'll need almost 200 hours of gameplay to reach 100% completion here, which isn't even considering the DLC. There is a lot to learn in this one, but as with any good JRPG, you'll be so absorbed in it all that you'll be able to distinguish your blades from your drivers pretty quickly. Of course, all 3 Xenoblade Chronicles games are absolutely worth your attention, and X is pretty good too, so if you happen to like one of them, just know there's a few hundred more hours of content waiting for you. A supremely chill experience, that is what you make of it. Stardew Valley provides the perfect release from the stresses of modern life by just allowing you to farm carrots all day. You technically don't even need to speak to another soul and can roleplay the mysterious farmer who nobody knows if you want to. But that would rob Stardew of some of its magic, the ability to make friends in a largely unfriendly small village. They just need to warm to you first. Or you can just give them loads of presents and they'll be your mate eventually. You can opt for a quaint life of cultivation with your spouse, or even become an adventurer and take on ghoulies for treasure. It all feels totally natural on the Switch, so whatever kind of person you want to be, Stardew provides escapism like few other games before it, and a billion cents. While it was a long wait for Dreadheads, has that caught on yet? Metroid Red proved that 2D Metroid could still be every bit as engrossing as its prime counterparts. Who knew that basically neutering Samus could be exactly what these side-scrolling games needed to flourish once again? Facing off against the almost impenetrable Emmy sentries, a lot of Dread is spent stealthily skulking around and trying not to alert them, which gives Dread a slight survival horror bent that will have you on the edge of your seat for most of your playtime. It's called Metroid Red, not Metroid look forward to. Though perhaps too frustrating for some, especially early on, eventually getting rid of the robot nemesis who's been making your life hell for hours is a seriously satisfying reward and one of the best experiences you'll ever find on Switch. Many relationships and families have been ripped apart thanks to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, a chaotic evil video game if ever there was one. If you're in a bad mood or are perhaps too competitive for your own good, playing Mario Kart is not recommended, as it will prey on you and turn you into a fire-breathing vengeful dragon whenever you see a blue shell making its way to your pole position. Easy to pick up and play, even the most incompetent of non-gamers will be able to get to grips with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe pretty quickly with no fuss, but being able to win comes down to a combination of sheer luck and staying away from first place as long as possible. It just puts a target on your back, guys. If you need something to break the ice with a house guest, fire up Mario Kart and see what their personality is really like. The Switch has allowed Nintendo to give some of their less appreciated franchises a bit of a glow-up, apart from F-Zero for some cursed reason, and perhaps none have benefited from that more than Fire Emblem. The tactical RPG series has always had its fans, but for the most part people just associate the franchise with the sword-wielding characters in Smash Bros. Now though, it's a juggernaut unto itself, with Three Houses being the biggest success yet and arguably the best the series has ever been. Set in a school for aspiring military officers, you control a mercenary with a mysterious past who just so happens to become a professor for this school. The students are split across 3 houses, and the actions and choices you make during the game will affect which house you ally with, fundamentally changing the second half of the game. If you love strategy games with plenty of replayability and also eating loads of random meals, 3 Houses is the game for you. Also, Engage is on the Switch. It's not bad. It's alright. Arguably the best non-exclusive game available on the Nintendo Switch, spoiler alert, that is what we're arguing, Hades set a new standard for roguelikes and action games in general when it originally launched for consoles on the Switch. While it has been ported to other platforms since, the bite-sized nature of its roguelike formula means the Nintendo Switch is the ideal platform to experience this Greek epic. Playing as the titular Hades' son Zagreus, you embark on a quest to escape the underworld in order to reunite with your mother. Unfortunately for you, escaping from the grasp of Hades himself is easier said said and done, and the Lord of the Underworld is intent on throwing everything at you to stop it from happening. Oh well, guess you will just have to fall in love with about 8 different characters back at the House of Hades when you die for the millionth time. What a shame. And then you can play the sequel. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is the ultimate Smash experience with an absolutely ridiculous well of content to keep players content for dozens of hours, though you get the feeling that it will be 2050 and there will still be people sticking by Melee. Whether you're playing solo or against others, Ultimate is a game that just gets better the more you play. Not only do you progressively earn more characters to play as, but you also feel yourself growing better as you best what happens to be a simple fighter that actually has a surprising amount to learn. From the swath of modes to the DLC characters to master, casual and competitive players alike are bound to find something in Ultimate to latch onto, though sadly not the complete lack of cheeks on Solid Snakes. What did they do to my boy? I genuinely have no idea how Sakurai and Nintendo will top this one. 2 Minecraft Steves, maybe? Luigi has spent the vast majority of his life living in the shadow of his more famous brother Mario, but when the green-suited plumber gets his moments in the spotlight, he does tend to shine. Just look at the Luigi's Mansion franchise, which has become a popular part of Nintendo's portfolio in recent years, with Luigi's Mansion 3 in particular being a series highlight. Taking the action from a mansion to a spooky haunted hotel, Luigi and friends arrive at the last resort for a vacation, only to find that the hotel is filled with ghosts. Typical. Fortunately for Luigi though, he's able to team up with Professor Egad once again to start vacuuming up some ghosts, but he doesn't have to do it alone. The new Gooigi ability lets another player pick up a Joy-Con to join in the fun, making Luigi's Mansion 3 a brilliant co-op experience too. No joke, this is close to being in my top 10 favourite games of all time. It's just magic, really. With so many games over so many decades, it's a wonder that Nintendo are still even able to innovate with each new Mario game. Super Mario Odyssey is one of the franchise's most original and downright fun games, tasking the player with using a sentient cap to take over people and objects. It's not as morbid as it sounds, don't worry, but I am a bit worried that we haven't had a brand new 3D Mario since this one. What's going on, guys? Cappy can allow Mario to reach places he never could and to overcome difficult obstacles, with each new possession making Odyssey feel like a different game. There is also a staggering amount of moons to track down and collect, so once you've beaten Mario's old nemesis, no, not the taxman this time, the game is only really just beginning to open up. There's more than a hatful of things to love about this one, and that includes becoming an Italian dinosaur. As time goes on, you imagine people will love this one even more than Galaxy and maybe Super Mario 64. But the best Switch game ever of all time so far has to be Breath of the Wild releasing with a Switch on day one could be seen as a serious gamble from Nintendo. You see, they were delivering the most ambitious Zelda game to date, so much so that people didn't know how Nintendo could ever really follow it up. Somehow though, they managed to accomplish it with Tears of the Kingdom, which fundamentally improves and adds to the core experience in pretty incredible ways. Tears of the Kingdom builds on the experimentation and exploration that formed the core identity of Breath of the Wild, while also still being a quintessential Zelda game. See something huge in the distance? Make your way there and then try to climb it. You probably can. Meanwhile, new abilities like Fuse and Ultra Hand allow you as the player to create massive contraptions, vehicles and tools to help you in your quest to save Hyrule. Well, that can wait. For now, we must build silly stuff and try to break this brilliant game and our own limbs. Add in a whole new underground area and you've got simply an incredible sequel that will surprise you every 5 minutes. You can put Breath of the Wild here instead if you want. That's fine by us, or any game actually. We're not your dad. Yet. Outro gang, thanks for sticking with us for another beefy boy. We really wanted to avoid too many ports or remasters or even games in the same series because it just gets boring, doesn't it? If you disagree with that though, be sure to let me know down in the comments because it'd be boring if we all agreed with each other all the time, wouldn't it? Don't you agree? I've been Jimmy, been good to have you, and I'll catch you in the next one.